Please welcome sports columnist and editor-at-large at ESPN's Anscape, William Rhoden.
All right. I think that was spectacular. Really, I think this panel is going to be great because everybody has known George for a long time from different perspectives. I think I've known him since 1987. But let me bring on the person who puts this all together, the great Mike Tollin, who's the director. Mike, before you come out, well, go ahead, you come out, you can bask in it. Mike is tremendous. I'm sure all of you are familiar with his work. If you didn't know who did it, you've probably seen it. His volume of work over 40 years is amazing. I've been privileged to know him for probably about, 25, 30 years. And the thing is, I'm going to read it because I don't want to miss it. I'm not going to read the whole thing.
Please don't.
But the thing that he's proud of is he's a film and television producer and a director. How many of you saw The Last Dance? Yeah. So Mike was the producer of that won an Emmy Award, and he was one of the executive producers of The Last Dance. And he's also, you've seen Radio, Coach Carter, Varsity Blues, Hank Aaron, Chasing the Dream, which was phenomenal, and it won a Peabody Award. And he's also there's more, I'm just going to end up with this. In terms of documentaries, Mike was one of the founding producers of the Peabody Award-winning series of 30 for 30. I'm sure everybody has seen some of the 30-30. So there's more and more and more, but he's the man. Mike is just tremendous. And what you saw here about Raveling was just, and it came from, we'll talk during the back talk, but it came from the heart. But Mike is just tremendous, so Mike Tollin.
Is this working? Now you know why I brought Bill, right? We worked on that a long time together, didn't we? No, Bill's been great. If we're doing a documentary about a subject that involves sports, black culture, both, anything in the last, whatever the introduction was, this was, now I'm going to do a little blowing smoke his way. He was the Sports of the Times columnist. That was the most prestigious, the most influential, the most authoritative voice in journalism back when we used to read newspapers. And now he's working for Anscape, which you may not know, but you should, because it's a division of the Disney company, part of ESPN. They have a film studio, and Bill kind of runs the wordsmithing. He puts a lot of people under his wing and is kind of a emeritus scholar there. I'm going to bring in two more people. Why don't you come out together, if you would, Larry and Sharrie. These are two people who played a big part in the film. Sharrie Williams. Sharrie is a friend. This is just me with my homies, homegirl and homeboy. I met Sharrie through some people in the audience who we'll introduce in a little bit. She is the ABC News anchor, primetime. What's great is, like, you go running around town in Philly and you're with a rock star if you're with Sharrie. Go to a ball game at the Link or the Citizens Bank Park.
You're kind.
Everybody, well, I'm just talking from experience. She is not only an anchor, but she is a mental health enthusiast, advocate, philanthropist. She's all about a lot of things that are important in making the world a better place, and proud to have her as a pal and a colleague. And Larry Miller. Please welcome Larry Miller. Larry was the founding president of the Jordan brand. And he wears it well. He was also the president of the Portland Trailblazers for many years. He is back now as the chairman of the advisory board of Jordan Brand, and he's written a book. Some of you might have seen and read the book Jump. We are now working on the documentary adaptation of Jump. It's an amazing story. Hopefully we'll get into it a little bit, but you saw him there, and his history with George is multifaceted and goes way, way back. I'm gonna turn it back over to Bill.
All right. Well, think about this crew. They could drive this train easily, but ow. I'm just curious. Like I said, each of us have had a different relationship with Coach Raveling. And watching this thing I forgot how multifaceted he was. I mean, and he touched so many lives. So the first thing, Mike, I just want you to talk about why you decided to make this. And let me say, I forgot what I wanted to say. First of all, thank you so much for doing this, man. Thank you so much for doing this. Everybody doesn't get their flowers. Everybody, and George, no, he didn't win a national championship, but he did so much other stuff. So how did this come about, and why did you decide to do this?
Well, first, there's a cliche, we call it a labor of love. People say it all the time. This was truly a labor of love. When George and I talk on the telephone, when we hang up, we tell each other, we love you. I say, I love you. 3 days ago, George called really to apologize for not being here. He wanted to be here in the worst way. This is the world premiere. Thanks to our partners at Nike and Waffle Iron and Charles Barkley, we will be showing this film a lot of places before it ends up on a streaming platform in the spring. But it is so much a part of my heart. I'm so grateful to have him in my life. And he tells me, and I tell him back, we are friends forever. Yeah. And at 88 years old, as you heard Calipari and some others say, he's got a long forever still to go. But the how and why starts with somebody I need to introduce. If William Wesley could stand up, please. Worldwide West, you may know him as Worldwide West. So Wes is senior vice president, executive vice president, some kind of big shot running the New York Knicks right now. But back in the day, he was a colleague of Larry's and a lot of other folks. And he, like a lot of us, saw the movie Air and said, well, that was a nice entertainment, but it wasn't the truth. And he called me up because we've been doing some things together in the past, and he said, Mike, A, we got to tell the truth, B, we got to honor Rav. And so when he said, let's tell the story of George Raveling, he didn't realize that I had all this history as a little boy growing up in Philadelphia. Right. George Raveling, as you heard, was the assistant coach for Villanova and recruited my first sports heroes from Villanova, Johnny Jones and Howard Porter, and got us to the finals against UCLA. And, I just worshiped him from afar. And now Wes introduces me to George, and we shake hands. And then the next piece of the puzzle is a man who obviously needs to be noted, an entrepreneur named Daniel Chu, who appears in the film. He financed the film. He is a dear friend of George's, and he said, I want to do anything I can to help this get made. And I said, well, I can tell you what to do to help. And he stood behind us. This is a very, very tough documentary market right now. And so the best way to do a story that you really believe in is to get independent financing, go as far downstream as you can, which is, if you can, go all the way, get it finished, and then have a premiere like this, and then go to the streaming service. So Daniel made that all possible.
Yeah, and the thing is, and I want to ask each of you about, I think we have about 4 generations here, probably. And we will have to get to the specifics of it, but
I'm at the top of those 4.
I don't know, Larry.
Sharrie must have 3 of them.
Yeah.
I'll be the other 3.
I'll tell you, but I ultimately want to ask each of you about your relationship with George and how it came about. Before I get to that, I just want to acknowledge something about the truth of the air, and particularly in the climate we're in now, where the untruth reigns, where you could just say anything and it just becomes true. And the fact that you could actually use the power of documentary to set it straight, to set the record straight. I think that was wonderful. I mean, air is fine. And the fact that you actually got Affleck on camera to admit that never let the facts
get in the way of
he said it. I'm like, man, right there. So great job, man. I mean, the fact that you got it. So props to you, man. But let's start with you, since you're the youngest, Sharrie, by far. Just tell us about your relationship with George. How did it evolve and all that?
Well, I came into the project also through William Wesley, connecting me with Michael Tollin. And I'm a journalist in Philadelphia.
Right.
And I love basketball, been hanging around it a long time. So when I learned of this going down, and really to know that I'm in Philadelphia, Villanova is in our backyard, and Michael asked me, will you be a part of this?
Yeah.
And as a journalist, we are always looking for what we call the gems, the nuggets, what is really driving what we see, what's behind it. And that's usually where we want to put the light. That's probably where it needs to shine. And that is George Raveling, a person who, as we learn so much about the trailblazing life that he leads, trailblazers are fascinating in this way, particularly for George Raveling. Trailblazers don't have anyone giving them the path, showing them the map, but they're the ones who turn around and want to help and influence the people who come behind them. And that's a mindset of, why would you do that? No one really did it for him. He was a first in so many areas, but yet he's the one who is behind the scenes for all of these names that you see out front. And to me, as a journalist, those are the stories that deserve to be told, and I'm glad Michael Tollin is doing it.
Absolutely. Same thing, Larry. I mean, you go so far back with George. So the general question is, just tell us about your relationship with George, how it started, and secondarily, what he has meant to you over these decades.
Well, first I want to say thank you, Mike, for producing this film. It's amazing. I learned some things about George that I had, and I've known George for a while. I learned things that I didn't know about him, and it's great to see him get his flowers while he's here and able to enjoy it and able to feel the love that folks have for him, myself included. I met George when I knew who George was, knew of George growing up in Philly. And I actually met George when I came to Nike. When I started working at Nike, George was one of the people that welcomed me there, that was there to support and help me however he could. And over the years, he became a mentor to me. When I was working for the Trailblazers, it was two people that I used to call whenever I was looking to make a deal or a trade. One of them sitting here, Nico Harrison. The other one was George Raveling. They were the two people that I would seek out and look to get advice about making, whether we were going to trade for somebody or hire somebody. And George has continued to be a great mentor to me. I had lunch with him about 3 months ago. I was in LA, and we sat down and had maybe a 3-hour lunch, and it was just great to catch up with him, see him in good spirits, get more knowledge and information from him. And yeah, I was one of the people that used to get those stacks of that he would send out. And initially, I looked forward to it, and I was like, wow. After a while, it started to pile. I'm like, I couldn't keep up with it. I couldn't keep up with it. But and to me, George is more than a coach. He's someone that's a teacher. He is constantly looking for ways to teach people, to help people educate themselves and improve their lives. And to me, it's been amazing for me to just be connected to him and have him as a mentor and somebody that I could go to for advice. George was the first person that, like I said in the film about Africa, but he also he came to my office one day. He said, "You know where you guys are ranked, where Jordan is ranked in China?" I said, "No, George." He said, "You're number 6 in China." He said, "Is that where you want to be?" I was like, "Absolutely not." Well, and so he kind of inspired me to start looking at how we could build our business and increase our presence in China. But again, he's someone that's always encouraged and pushed and mentored and guided, not just myself, but a lot of us. For a lot of us, myself included, if it wasn't for George, we wouldn't be where we are today.
Yeah, that's good. And that's such not an I hate the word interesting. That's such a great point. And I was wondering, each of you, we all think we knew George, and then you look at this, And you're like, wow, man, I didn't know that, he influenced this group over here, and this group over here, and this group over here. I thought it was just like me. But I probably asked you this question before, maybe you might. When you're looking at this, what about his influence? Again, did you rethink the impact that he had on each of you? And then we're talking about you mentioned it too, bringing African Americans into the fold and being a mentor. Just what thoughts did you have? Again, you spent years doing this, but when you're watching this, what other thoughts did you have while you're watching this man's life?
Well, I remember the challenge after Wes called me, and I said yes, and I never wavered from the yes, but damn, I thought, how are we going to get people to watch this film, care about this film, pay attention to a film? We'll just say it. We never won anything, right? And then I start calling people, and everybody wants to participate, and I start meeting these guys, and everywhere we went, there was this influence and this love, and he's in every Hall of Fame imaginable. And so I'm trying to figure out, okay, why does everybody love George Raveling? Right. And actually, Marlon Wayans was great to help me go on that quest. I brought him in to say, hey, we could make this film as if it's the guy who played him in the movie, trying to figure out who the real George Raveling is. And so we bookended. He meets him at the end, and that's kind of and it was genuine. And the words he said about George were real and from the heart. But it happened to me every time I was with him. Right. He would say, we'd sit and we'd be having scrambled eggs for brunch or something. He only goes to one place in Culver City, same place every time. And at the end of it, before the check would come, he'd say, how can George Raveling make Mike Tollin's life better? Yeah. And I said, I have this sister-in-law who's a cancer survivor, and we're having a fundraiser, and we'd love you to come. He said, well, I can't come, but I would love the address. And then he sends a really generous check, and he asks me every time he talks to me, how's your sister-in-law doing? There's a benevolence to him. There's a spirit of giving. There's a book. I brought my little props here because I want to spread the gospel according to George. There's a book that came out. You may know Ryan Holiday from his podcast. He's also an author. He wrote a book with George, really by George, called What You're Made For. And it is inspiring. Ryan's going to help us promote the movie, so I said I'd help introduce people to the book. But also, every morning at 4:01 a.m., I get the Daily Coach in my inbox. And I'm thinking, damn, George, you get up at 4 o'clock every morning. Well, obviously, there's a way to do that without getting up at 4 in the morning. But it is there. And because I knew we were doing this today, I kind of bookmarked this. And just to answer your question, the best way is to hear the words that he thinks of and shares with us every day. So you can Google this and get it for free. It's called The Daily Coach, and then there's a subset of that called Notes of an Elder. And today I'll just pick out a few of the things he says. Peace only comes when you stop auditioning for other people's approval, okay? Don't wait until life slows down to ask the big questions. Who are you when no one's watching? What breaks your heart? What makes your spirit rise? I'm obviously picking ones that I agree with and want to follow. The world will try to shape you. Don't let it shrink you. Stretch, disrupt, leave your mark. George Raveling has certainly left his mark.
Sharrie.
You asked, Nick, what did we learn? This is my first time seeing the film in its totality myself, and it really uplifts his journey. Wow. It uplifts his journey from the Jim Crow South to becoming a global influence, but you didn't know it. But when you look at all of the people who are connected to him, the way that he has shown up in others' lives, to have the opportunity for that to be reflected there. And you're right, I may be a little younger than some of those of you on the stage, and I haven't had a chance to spend that type of time with George Raveling, but people are looking for today's heroes, integrity. People are looking for the real story. Yeah. And when you can take this type of film and use these types of voices who can tell you that this is the way they were connected to George Raveling, it will stick with people. So you're hoping it'll be relatable for people can see that you can come from a certain space and continue to make moves in this world and connect with people and build with other people, use his own life to really influence other people. So I think that for me, there was so much to learn. Yeah. And he's fascinating, he's charismatic. You know, he cares about what's going on. Yes, he's a coach, but he was an influencer. He was ahead of his time. He's still thinking out of the box. Right. And I think that's what makes, George Raveling so relatable. And you're thinking, okay, well, why should people care, right? If they're saying you didn't win anything, but winning in life also matters when you show people that there is so much more happening off the court. Right. And here are all the people who can represent that.
Right. That's beautiful. What about you, Larry? That's a general question, but as I was hearing you guys talk, but also about, you were climbing the ladder as an executive and as a black executive. And somebody like, I'm wondering what role George played in your life in terms of the grit that you have to have. Sometimes I think a lot of African Americans climbing the ladder don't understand there's even a ladder to climb, So I'm not trying to lead you to that.
It's funny, Bill, you hit on exactly what I was thinking about to speak on, which is the courage that George had and the courage that it took to make the kind of changes, to step out and do the things that George did. It takes courage. And to me, he is and continues to be an example of having that courage to step out and do what you think is right. And to me, that's one of the things that came through loud and clear in the movie. And for me, it's one of the things that is impressive to me. I was fortunate enough to be around people like George and John Thompson and John Chaney, folks who had the courage to speak their minds, do the things that they thought were right. Support the efforts and the things that they thought were right. And to me, that's one of the big things that comes out of this for me. I think, I'm grateful to Phil Knight for putting me in a position to even get to know guys like George and Coach Thompson and Coach Chaney. And so I just feel, like I said, it's a blessing to me. But what George represents and stands out to me is the courage to step out and do what you think is right and to stand your ground. I mean, to say, hey, today, the players that challenged him, coaches today might have given in to those, but George wouldn't give in because at the end of the day, he had the courage to say, this is what I believe is right. And to me, I define courage as not that you're not afraid to do something, but you are nervous, you're anxious, or you're afraid, but you do it anyway because it's the right thing to do. And George, to me, is a clear representative of that.
Yeah, I know we're going to answer it, open this up to questions, but I want to pick up on something each of you said because I guess I first met George by 1985 at the Final Four, and I call them the Big Four. Me and Will Bond and late Ralph Wiley, we would meet at a coffee shop at the Final Four, and we kind of started this, and it was Big John, John Chaney, George, and Nolan. And we would put aside the fact that at the time, because I was a columnist at the time, but we would sit down there, we would sit until like 4 in the morning, and it was about the fight. They would challenge us, what are y'all doing? Who are you bringing along? We would kind of humbly ask questions of them. But when I'm looking at this, kind of looking forward, I'm thinking, where's the fight? After, George is in his 80s, both Johns have passed away, Nolan's 80, and I'm thinking in terms of, well, where's the fight? Are people in this industry making so much money that they say, what's the fight? Fight about what? I'm good. So when I'm looking at this, and I'm thinking, where's the fight? Who's going to be the next generation of Georges and Johns to fight? So it's not necessarily a question, but if you have a response to it. But that's what I'm thinking when I'm looking at that. I'm like, man, when these guys, that generation's gone, where's the fight? Now, are we doing so well that ain't no fight?
So I'm going to ask you, sorry. Bill wrote a book called $40 Million Slaves.
Right.
And I'd love to ask the question of you, having followed prominent athletes, black and white, for decades and decades. What have we lost with, the chase for the biggest contract? And in terms of the emotional connection between fans and their heroes, between teams and the communities that they build, and there's just a sense now of, the greed and the almighty dollar.
Right.
I mean, is it better? Is it worse? Where's it going?
That's a hell of a question. In fact, I was thinking, man, I wish George was here so I could ask him. I said, man, where is this thing going, man? Because I'm looking around and said, man, there are a lot of cats who are just really happy. Despite where we are, and I don't want to go off on that, but there are a lot of folks who you would think would be resisting who are like making more money than ever. And they say, hey, man, I'm good. It's too bad for you. I'm sorry they're picking you up off the street, but I'm good. And so in George's generation and in John's generation, it was about the collective. It was about the community. If you're not doing well, I'm not doing well. And that's my fear, is that we've kind of lost that kind of sense that I see you suffering and I'm suffering. It's kind of like, sorry you're suffering,
I think that is what is powerful about the documentary.
Right.
And the importance of storytelling with facts.
Right.
Because those of us who are living in this day and embracing it, you can think that you're very right, that I'm doing well and things are well, but it's just a generation ago. It's just 2 generations back.
Right.
And for George, as he mentioned, referencing a part of his lineage already, were slaves. And that is why it's important for the documentary. So those of us who are in 2025, you weren't there maybe for 2000. How can this appeal to those younger people who love basketball and want to know more? You see this in documentaries, and that is part of why makes it storytelling so powerful, so that people can get a sense of what they did not live, but they still can know.
Right.
The Jerry West, George Raveling moment in this film.
It was so touching.
Man, oh man,
Yeah.
did we get lucky just to get Jerry in his last days. And if you think back in terms of the storytelling that Sharrie refers to, we don't even tell you who won the game. It's so not about that. Look at the relationship that one incident, Jerry was near tears, and but I've seen that with George, and I'm getting chills just thinking about it. At 88 years old, the phone calls that come in, the camaraderie, the kinship, the relationships are so deep. They last for lifetimes because they were built on some other kind of foundation, right? That wasn't wins and losses and wasn't dollars and cents.
Yeah. Anybody have a question? Just finally, man, but again, for all that reason, thank you for doing that. Really, thank you for doing this, because you really gave George a presence and a voice. And it's not about the championship, like you said. There's a much bigger championship than that. How do we have time for 1 or 2 questions or comments? Oh, good.
Everybody raise your hand?
Oh, there's one right there. Yeah, you can stand up.
First of all, thank you. That was very inspiring to watch. How can we help you to get the word out?
Well, there's something called social media that is probably could be very helpful. Thank you for asking, first of all. Tell your friends, post it on Insta, do TikToks about it. My information is available through the festival, and if anybody has ideas about events they're staging or opportunities to be influencers, the great news is that, as I said earlier, Nike loves this film and wants to get the word out, not to sell sneakers, but to honor George. And so we're going to be doing screenings all over the country. We'll do one in Philly with these guys and with Jay Wright. We'll do one in LA with Doc Rivers. We'll do one at the NBA All-Star Game. We'll do one for Black History Month. We'll do one around Martin Luther King Day. So hopefully there'll be awareness of those events and opportunities for people to chime in and share the word. And thanks for asking.
While we still have Dr. King Day.
How you doing? My name is Justin Bishop. I'm also an aspiring filmmaker and marketer, so I hope to help you all. I think this film is fantastic. Just to speak a little bit on Mr. Rhoden's point, my current favorite player in the league is Jaylen Brown. For the fight, yes, he was the Finals MVP, but to me, he is the continuation of that Bill Russell lineage, right? So, do you not see the fight in him?
Yeah, it's one person. I actually think the WNBA probably has, the women in the WNBA have been ferocious. It's been ferocious, and thanks to the whole Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese thing, I think that's really tapped us into the whole, white hope. I think it's, for those who thought that it had disappeared, I think that showed that it's just a new variation of it, and that it never disappears. And I think that's what George was talking about, that it's an existential fight. It never ends. It never ends. I joked about Dr. King, but that's real, And so who's going to fight in the resist? So yeah, to answer your question, Jaylen Brown is one, but one person doesn't make an army. I think there's a whole consciousness that we have to get back to. I think, of caring for each other and understanding that there is a fight and that this history is really important, right?
No,
history is important.
I agree. I think films like this and things like this can inspire people to say, hey, I should be doing more. I should be, trying to help others. It's going to take things like this, films about George and his life and what he's done that can help inspire other people to try to do more as well.
And what I love about it, in the sense, there's always the generation that's asking, well, who's next and who will do it? But we are here. They are here. And when you can tie it in with those who have done it, who can show you how it can be done, it does, create inspiration. And the hope is, for me, as I watch the film, that it resonates, George Raveling clearly was a person of purpose and possibility, and you hope for those who not necessarily lived in his era who can see this, can feel that just the same, and that his footprint can echo on, that there is always something to fight for. There always is.
Right. Was there somebody?
Hi. I'm next to the mic. My name is Ron Mitchell. I own the Bay State Banner, which is New England's black-owned newspaper, 60th year, coming up in our 60th year of in publication. And I have a question for all four of you. As a publisher of this historic paper, I often think about which basketball player over time, from Bill Russell, to Kobe Bryant, and on to the greats of today, who affected basketball the most. But watching this film, what I think I learned is that it really wasn't a player. George affected the game on so many levels, from the civil rights movement to today, and we really didn't know about him. So this is a question to all of you. Can any of you think of anybody involved in the game that affected the game as much as George?
Why don't you start? Let's move around.
No.
Yeah.
I mean, this is kind of the point, that you can see the connecting of it.
Thank you for bringing that up and calling that to our attention.
I do think, though, there have been players that have affected the game, have affected society. When you think about the summit meeting that happened with Kareem and Muhammad Ali and that group of athletes. So there have been athletes that have impacted the game. There have been, Michael Jordan has probably impacted the game more than anybody, to me. That's just my personal opinion. But again, there have been athletes who have affected the game, but there have also been people around the game, like George, who've had a major impact on the game. Well, George also impacted the game when he played, but he also continued that impact once he wasn't playing any longer. But I agree. I think his impact on the game has been amazing. But I think there have been players that have also impacted the game as well.
Yeah. Structurally, during the NBA playoffs, I spent like an afternoon with Oscar Robertson. And again, you're talking about, again, kind of like this, you're talking about somebody, forget the game, just stuff he did. I mean, free agency in basketball is because of Oscar. And I don't know how many guys actually realize the reason we're getting paid is because of Oscar. And the thing is, and it gets back to his character. The thing, when I talk to guys who are like in their 80s, and you think of all the stuff that they had to go through, you saw the colored-only signs. I mean, to a lot of people, they say, "Oh man, you're making that up. That didn't really happen." And just to have that type of humiliation and still have to carry yourself with dignity, and that's what Oscar was saying. He said, "Yeah, I mean, they tell us to move on, but the nail's gone, but the hole's still there." So it was a great question, but there are a lot of people we don't know. But, okay, we're getting the high sign. Make your friend.
Yeah, we have time for one last question.
I think, Mike, you just need to make more films about people who've impacted the game.
That's right. As we see the next series.
Yeah, I think that part of what this film is important about purpose and messages for ball players, it's not just about playing ball. So it'd be great to see this film shown in high schools to athletes, because I think that kind of message that's there, you can make a difference without making a lot of noise. So I think that's important.
Thank you for saying that. That's part of the plan for sure. Thank you.
Thank you. I think that's it. But listen, Mike, thanks again. Film was great. You guys were great. Legends, by the way, here. They're 3 legends. Thank you very much.
Thank you.